Well, welcome back to Lillehammer for the second race of the day in the cross-country World Cup series. A mini tour, as they call it, going on. Races yesterday over the sprint distance. They've got an individual 15-kilometre today, and then the pursuit tomorrow over the same distance. 103 entries. This sport is certainly not losing popularity. It's going to be a long time before we get them all underway. Well, Ruka was the venue for the first World Cup. Kalle Halvorsen getting third place in the 15-kilometre up there. He said he started slowly, wanted to start slowly, but he just overdid it slightly and then couldn't quite get back on terms with the two race leaders. Second place went to Emil Iversen. He's having a great season.
He's having a fantastic start. The sprinting is good, the distance is good.
But he was still 19.5 behind the eventual winner, who was, of course, one Alexander Bolshinov. He won the sprint, he won the distance race. He is the new king, and he's going to be a tough man to beat this season, although yesterday in the sprint in Lillehammer, possibly the skis affecting him, but he did look tired, and his tactics, his choice of heat was appalling.
I think so. That was a key factor, tactical error yesterday.
Well, let's see what he has to say about his win in Ruka last weekend.
Никакого секрета нет. Просто сегодня я начал не так быстро, как обычно.
I don't have any secrets for the win. I just started slightly slower than usual and then picked the pace up, and it was good enough. He said he worked hard and he's happy with the way it turned out, so he should be. 100 points to him, 200 out of 200, and he is the man in yellow going into today's race. Iversen starting well. Halvorsen, he often has a good start to the season. He's done it again. Martin Jonsrud-Sundby, always there or thereabouts. Be interesting to see what he can do come the end of the year. Well, there was one particular name missing from that top six, Mike, who we would have expected to be there at the start of the season.
Johannes Hosflot-Klebo in the distance.
That's the one.
It hasn't gone so well. It's strange how it works out. Came into the season as probably favourite, but he's had a lot of bad luck so far.
We'll see how he gets on today. Yesterday, probably his big chance of a victory, but a broken pole put him out of contention in the semi-finals. Still some 3 or 4 minutes before the start of the men's 15-kilometre. A long start list, as we mentioned, 103. The conditions, 4.2. The temperature's going up, and the humidity levels, well, they can cope with that. Let's have a look at the profile of the course. It's exactly the same as the women's, but instead of twice around the 5K, they go 3 times around. That means 3 times up the hill that they hit just before 3 kilometres. Here it goes, up and up and up. It's brutal and could well decide the race today.
Incredible, 64-metre in terms of rise, 65 actually, and it just continues to go up and up and up. A deciding factor, without a doubt.
And here's the lineup. David Norris has the honour of getting things underway. Another man for 2 Alaskans starting the races today. That's slightly unusual. Let's see further down the list. Anyone there? Oskar Svensson of Sweden starting at 12:24. Now we get into some of the bigger names. Villigjanin starting just a minute ahead of Andy Musgrave. He's hopefully on good form. Didn't go to Ruka, not because of the distance, but because of the cost of getting there. The British team focusing their efforts on certain events this year, and we're hoping for something good from Muzzy today. Martin Jonsrud-Sundby starts at 52 on his best form, potential winner. We haven't seen that so far this year. Alex Harvey, 58, great result in the sprint yesterday for Harvey. Can he back it up with a top 3 in this 15K? Patrick Caldwell goes. Sophie Caldwell pulling out of the women's event. She was the only one to pull out. And then at the bottom end, a lot of new athletes. Some who'll make it big, others who won't. Andrew Young goes number 90. Just missed qualification in the sprint yesterday by 0.6 of a second. And James Klugner, I've been impressed actually, Mike. He's the weakest of the 3 Brits, but his percentages, his performances have improved fairly well this year.
They very much have. A very powerful start, I think, for the whole team into the season. The women's team as well, with Annika and Bate all doing so well. And James has especially put his sprinting in a strong place. 47th yesterday, but not far off the cut-off.
Yeah, he was close. Annika some way off the mark, to be honest. And, 16 seconds off the qualifying time. So a bit of improvement needed there if they're going to get through to the last 30.
Looks like Muzzy there, just checking. When do I start? In the background. But of course, Muzzy, it's a good start position, I think. Bib 30, he's got good benchmarkers ahead of him to see what the pacing is. There's Melenchenko ahead of him. Yakimushkin, I think we'll see better from him as the season goes on. He's start number 9.
Yeah, well, you've got Matti Häkkinen goes 25, so that's not a bad split time to get. Jean-Marc Gaillard starting 26, but the majority of the seeds going between number 30 and all the way down to number 70. We've got Sindre Score, who starts 70. So, a minute or so to go before the start. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with the first runners. Change of plan. No damage done. And David Norris now in the start line. 15K, Mike. In the old days, 45 minutes used to be a good time. Nowadays, they're looking at closer to 30.
Yes, it's going to be, let me think, 34 maybe today, 35?
Yes, it's with these conditions, anything under 33 would be phenomenal. I think we're probably looking at 30, 35, somewhere around there. We will see. The early markers won't give us too much of an idea. Ninget goes number 8. He's probably the first person to start with a really good chance. Rastelli now for Italy, comes from La Presse, which I think that's south of Turin, not so far from the French border.
He did
nice
well last weekend. It was good, 26th position in the 15 Classic, and I think he'll possibly a little better today, a little better freestyle.
Stenshorgen there, going through his last-minute preparations as we watch Janosch Brugger for Germany. 4 Germans on the start sheet. No one in the seeded group, Mike. The days of Teichmann and Angerer have gone.
There were special days when, for 4 seasons, we talked about, and of course, World Cup overall leaders on a number of occasions, the German athletes back in the, 2006 to 2012 at their strongest. But no, those days are past. But a team is growing again. We see that in the women's field, the Germans' women field, and I think the same for the men's side.
As we watch Temyov, is some of that due to the fact that the good cross-country athletes go straight for biathlon?
I think that has to be a factor, but you know, the main centres of excellence, if you like, Ruhpolding and Oberhof, the school there gives the education and sport, so from a young age they are getting athletes in for cross-country equally as they are for biathlon. Maybe there's more money in biathlon though.
So following Temyov out of the start gate is Jules Lapierre from France, and he made his World Cup debut here 12 months ago.
And silver medal in junior world under-23 championships in the skiathlon, so he's accomplished in both disciplines. Very light in terms of World Cup starts, only 9.
He takes the elbow flexion to an extreme on his, particularly on his left arm. Doesn't look quite right. Any asymmetry in a technique and it starts to look awkward. But I'm not sure whether he's had an injury to that left arm. Broken arm sometimes results in that. Simeon Hamilton now for USA. Went to the Stratton Mountain School, where I think Jesse Diggins went as well. Produces a lot of their top athletes. Lives in Aspen. What is it, his 10th season on the tour? He's hugely experienced. Starts pretty steady.
4 podiums, and of course that wonderful victory in Switzerland. Tour de Ski, day 1. Help me out with the valley. It's day 1. Let me see. I will find it. Yes, Valmuster.
Valmuster, yes. Dario Cologna's hometown. So Lari Lehtinen comes from Lahti, Finland's capital for skiing, where we had the World Championships a couple of seasons ago. my goodness, the tracks were good there, weren't they, Mike? I don't think I've ever seen such well-prepared tracks.
They were great World Championships. All World Championships are prepared well, of course. And I think this year in Seefeld, in mid-February to the end of February, should be wonderful.
Now, this young man made the top 8 in Ruka in the 15-kilometre there. It was in the classic style. Not in the team, really, for 2017.
Just love that flowing technique there. Full compression through the leg and an easy glide in between, body leaning so far forward.
22-year-old Ivan Yakimushkin. We saw him in the Tour de Ski last year. Did well considering his age, but that certainly has changed over the last, what, 5-6 years. The youngsters doing incredibly well. There must be a change in the age that they start the power training, because, you know, only a decade ago, certainly 15 years ago, we didn't reckon anyone would win until they got to 26, 27.
Yeah, and it's so true. In these big endurance sports, that was the normal trend. And yeah, Glebel winning the overall title last year was sensational. Of course, it had been done by a 22-year-old previously, Gundesvan.
Bugel from Germany, comes from Geisach, which is, what, halfway between Munich and Garmisch. Beautiful part of Bavaria. And Seefeld to the southwest, so he'll be fairly familiar with the World Championship tracks for this year. Mattis Stenshagen for Norway, 22-year-old, won a 15-kilometre classic up in Gola, which is where his particular group were training prior to the season, and that got him a place on the team. Today, he needs to take advantage of that and produce another good result. It's not easy to get into the Norwegian team. It's almost even harder to stay there.
It is, and Stenshagen, an advantage, possibly the fact that in 11 minutes time he'll be around after his first lap, and will get hopefully caught up or able to tuck in behind an athlete just starting their race.
Switzerland's Tony Livers, saw him in the 15K at the Olympic Games in Pyeongchang, just missed out on a top 30 on that occasion. And of course, the 15K won by Dario Cologna, the master of the big occasion. Jonas Dobler. He's produced some decent results in Olos over the last month or so. Just 30 seconds or so off Melchenko and Bolshinov. Sweden's first starter about to get underway, Jens Berman.
Berman, what a place to come from. Osana, that's his club, and you can see his titles there. As a junior, very, very good. Just needs to translate that now, a 24-year-old into the senior field.
Yeah, silver in 2014 at the Junior World Championships. Doesn't mean you're going to make it at senior level.
I think in terms of equipment or technicians, Patrick, having skis prepared well, we know that the Swedish team are safe. Kalla, her skis were running very well. Ebba Andersson, her skis were running beautifully well.
Melnichenko. Now, he won one of the races in Olos, and he beat a certain Alexander Bolshinov. So he's got to be on pretty good form. That was back on November the 11th, so what's that, just under 4 weeks ago. Salvadori. Now, has he got short legs, long body? Something slightly unusual about the dimensions.
Yes, I mean, it can work. There's a certain one of the late weightlifting events where you have a very long back and short legs. You've got a huge advantage, I think, at just the deadlift.
Baumann for Switzerland. His best season undoubtedly back in 2015, where we saw him on the podium, was it 1, 2, 3 times? There's not a huge amount of room in the warm-up area. Most of the cardiovascular stuff has been done at this stage. A few little intervals. What did you fancy? There's Andy Musgrave just getting the legs loosened up. Let's hope he has a better run today than he had in the Olympic 15K. We were expecting great things, but he knew after 500 meters that the legs were not with him that day. Partly and probably because he put in such a phenomenal effort in the pursuit.
He did. What was that? Even though it's 4 years earlier, sometimes when you bring something to the table, you dig deeper into reserves, mental and physical, and it's difficult to do that very often. So it's once in a year kind of scenario, and I think he did do that in the skiathlon.
Yeah, Scott Patterson also did pretty well in that event. He finished 18th in the skiathlon. He was only a minute off the pace of the winners. Musgrave, on the other hand, just a few seconds outside the winning time. So the first 20 or so. Early split at 3.3. Jules Lapierre is the fastest through the 800-meter split, and it looks as though he's going to hold on to that lead as he goes through 3.3. That's quite a positive start from him, but 3 times around the 5K, it's going to hurt by the time he gets there for the last time. There's a familiar figure, and a man who's pretty handy at 15K. Not sure how he's going to cope with the freestyle as opposed to the classic. He's
certainly worked a lot. You always work on your weaknesses. In the summer, his weakness relative was his freestyle. So Niskanen hopefully will produce a good one today.
23 is Clément Paris, who comes not from Paris, but from Megève. Cross-country skiing in France, Mike, is the Jura really the prime area, isn't it?
I think so, and some big names coming from over in Chamonix area as well. And but when you look at the possibilities, there are many good venues, many good locations for cross-country skiing in France.
Yoshida out on the tracks for Japan, starting 24. Ishida, racing in the women's, finished number 24 today in the 10K. That's not bad in the World Cup points. Now, Nunget, we thought he might be able to challenge the early times. Pretty steady going through at 8 kilometers. He was 7.5 seconds behind at 8.
Interesting each season, Patrick. We almost see, especially on this steep climb, the Skate 2 gear. It will be carried further up the hill this season than it was last season. This is Skate 1, where you're on a definite lead side, arm and leg together. And this is Skate 2, double pulling through the arms on one leg there, explosion. You need a lot of strength for this. It's like pushing heavy weights in the gym. Yeah,
you need great strength. You need good balance because you spend longer on one ski and the ski is underneath you as opposed to slightly to the side, which it is in Skate 1. So Skate 1 actually, technically it's quite complicated, but balance-wise, it feels pretty comfortable early on.
Very much. Well, there's the Skate 1, so left side lead here for Bourgel. Left arm coming up and then breaking into the Skate 2. There is a lean forward, but it's expensive. You build a lot of lactic acid.
Petter Norkud was one of the skiers who used Skate 1 far more than many of the other athletes and relied on tempo, rather like Therese Johaug.
He took Skate 1 to an unusual place, Petter Northug. He could reach out further. It didn't really slow him down. Obviously, his results proved that.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly textbook.
It wasn't textbook. The Norwegians maybe certainly weren't teaching their youngsters the same way.
But you try and stop them skiing like Petter Northug.
Always ski like their heroes. It will be the Kleber Lopp, as it's called in Norway. But that's in the classic where he runs up the hills. He's made that little technique his own.
So Lapierre has set a fairly challenging time at 3.3, and the margins 10 seconds or so between the top 10. That's pretty significant, but it is still very early days. The big names just starting to get underway. We're waiting for Andy Musgrave to take his place in the start gate. First really big race of the season for Musgrave. There is Klæbo, and it's not happened for him so far this year, but his time will come. Snorri Eitor Einarsson from Iceland will be starting number 41.
Say that again.
Snorri, what a great Christian name. Certainly would have suited me in my youth. Lapierre, 8:32, still standing as Dobler has another 25 meters or so to go. And actually Lapierre leading all the way through to 5K. He's completed his first lap and he's done it in 12:04. So we don't expect the winning time to be much quicker than 35, but Lapierre is going to produce a time of what, some 36 minutes?
I think so. Dobler there looking quite good, still early in the race, but yesterday 91st in the sprint, Dobler. I did wonder if their skis, the technicians got their, in these wet conditions, it can happen. The base of the ski, you can select the wrong base. None of the Germans did well yesterday. Huge strength here, and but the efficiency of balance, it's wonderful. Easy movement of the body left and right, compressing, extending the final part of the lower leg as the arms drive through.
Melnichenko. Now, Surrota has only won himself one World Cup, but there aren't so many people who can say that. He comes from Voss, which is just inland from Bergen. It's a beautiful area, very, very mountainous. Lots of downhill skiing there as well, lots of ski mountaineering.
His stats, he's been such a reliable member of the relays over, what, the last 8-10 years, Surrota, but only one individual win. He's a very good relay man.
Didrik Tonseth, tall, broad and fast. Finished 10th in the first distance race of the season. That was over the classic style. Now, would you say if you can do classic, that you can do skating, or if you can do skating, you can do classic?
You would think so, but it doesn't always work that way. Some are better than others, and
yeah, I think Sundby was a classic example, because to start with, his traditional, the classic style was brilliant, but he had to spend a whole season working on his skating before it finally clicked.
Yes,
here comes Musgrave.
Go Muzzy, how is that? It's okay, it's 6 seconds behind at this stage, and I think Lapierre, we may see him fade off. He's only 22-year-old, so I think Lapierre's start time is excellent, but will fade.
Yeah, we might have said the same about Ebba Anderson this morning, but what a performance from her. She kept the pace going.
Spitzov looking good. Didn't really, I expected a little more from him last weekend.
Here is the #1 Finn, Ivo Niskanen. 29th yesterday in the sprint. He set the pace early on in the quarterfinals, but was blown away with the change in tempo on the final hill. And there's another familiar figure, number 39, Dario Cologna. Starting a minute ahead of Cologna is Kruger, who was the silver medalist behind Cologna in the Olympic 15K. Kruger, of course, took the gold in the pursuit. Big surprise in the skiathlon. Backscheider. Temperature now at 4.5 degrees, if you're wondering why some of them are racing with short sleeve order and gloves off. Most coaches would want you to keep a thin pair of gloves on and at least a headband.
Yeah, very much so, and it's unusual. We're seeing a lot of the starters with no hats on today, but yes, your body goes into a fever state when you're racing, of heat.
Recognise him.
Wonder what he thinks these days, Patrick, from what, 4 times overall World Cup winner, so many victories in his career, but the last couple of years he's lost 15, he's lost his final punch, his final little bit in the race.
Yeah, when he won, he tended to win easy. When Dario Cologna's on his best form, he's almost impossible to beat. He's won more Tour de Skis than anyone else. And, of course, the 15-kilometre champion in Pyeongchang. He took 2 golds out in Sochi. He took gold in the 15K in Vancouver. He is the Olympic champion of all time, Dario Cologna. He just seems to get it right. Clavo just quick sign of the name. He looks a more serious athlete this year, but I think that's generally because of what went wrong early on. 23 is Clément Paris. And just waiting to get Musgrave's split. He's pulled himself up the order going through 2.2 and now just 5 seconds off the race leader.
I think that's a very comfortable start from Muzzy. We'll see Muzzy coming up this hill soon. So 5th place at 2.2 from bib 30. Very comfortable start, just where he needs to be. Yeah,
Musgrave, they had a long training camp in October on the Dachstein Glacier as we watch Einarsson of Iceland. But they had dreadful conditions. It was so warm throughout the summer that the glacier, half of it disappeared, the rest of it was melting.
Yes, and the Russians who were down on the glacier at that time as well, they all moved. 27 athletes moved, stayed for a couple of days, thought, nope, this isn't good training. And they went back, I think, back to Russia for roller ski training.
That's a tough decision, especially if you've got a budget, which they evidently don't have. Finnhagen Krog. It's quite a late start at 42, but you have to feel for someone like Kalle Halvorsen, Mike, starts 68, and he's a big man, so he won't appreciate the tracks if they get cut up. 64 is Bolshinov. We got Pellegrino, the winner of yesterday's sprint, starting 62, and Emil Iversen, who's second in the World Cup standing, starting number 60. So a lot of the big names have gone later on in that seeded group.
So Bakarev, another one of this, say it so many times, the Germans are developing youngsters, the Russians have got this batch of fantastic youngsters coming through, and well, Bolshinov's at the top of that tree, only 21-year-old, and leading the World Cup.
17 of the 103 in the under-23s. Is Klæbo's first win on the cards today? Not sure the time trial is his best format. He's brilliant in a group. He's got a devastating finish, just like Petter Northug. Well, that's a determined start.
The commentator shouting his name there. That is a determined start. You want to put right a lot of the wrongs that he may have felt, just bad luck that he's had this season. The bad luck was backing off last weekend in the last 8 meters when he was leading the sprint competition. Victory was really his, but Bolshinov took advantage.
Melnichenko lying in third at 2.2. He's moved up to second at 3.3, second at 5K, and leading at 5.8. So Melnichenko starting relatively steady, starting to unleash his power on the second lap. Villigjanin, good race in Ruka, finished 6th in the 15K there. And a gap of 20 plus, what's it going to be? 22.6 for Villigjanin.
Well, he's the master of pacing, but I think 22 behind at this stage, it puts him out of contention for a top 3. Possibly. He is a very strong pacer. He gets it right most of the time, Villigjanin.
Yeah, in terms of distance, he's over 100 meters behind. That's fairly significant.
Punching this early in the race.
De Fabiani.
So Muzzy should be coming up very soon.
Musgrave starting 30. Andrew Young of Great Britain starting number 90. That's not too good. Here comes Muzzy. Actually looking very sharp. He had a good race up in Beidestol and finished 7th in a classic race there. I know he was happy with that result. And he's got some of those on the second lap just to overtake. So good position for Musgrave. Looking strong, looking very, very relaxed. And if I'm not mistaken, Mike, that right knee looks a little bit straighter this year.
Looking strong, yes. And the leg, the muscle through the leg certainly looks as if he's put a little more muscle on there as well. Composed. He used to be just such an attack machine that he would pace it a little wrong, attacking from the start. But Muzzy looking super composed today.
Well, he's got himself into 6th place at 3.3. Larkov trailing in his wake. And he's going to be roughly 20 seconds behind. 20.3 for Larkov. So at 3.3, Lapierre of France still with the fastest time, 8:32. We're interested to see how long he can keep that going. Melnichenko in second, Backscheider 3, Paris, Stenhagen 4 and 5, and then Musgrave down in 6th at the moment. But that to me looks a very, very promising position. I'm just wondering, Mike, whether the conditions are already slower than they were at the start of this race.
I think with the traffic, of course, 103 starters, many more still to start. It's bound to break up a little bit. It's what, 4.5 degrees to the positive. So yes, the snow is very wet.
So with so many big names starting between position 60 and 70, do you think any of them can win it?
I think Emil Iversen, even though he put in a tough day of ski work yesterday in the sprint competition, I think he's in such good form he could come back. And Bolshinov, without a doubt, this is really his event, I think. So he'll be a tough man to beat, even though he's starting a little later.
We'll see. That first lap time might be crucial. Didrik Tonseth going through. Looks so young, Tonseth, fresh-faced, but what is he now, 27? Denis Spitsov never looks that comfy, but he's got an Olympic medal to hang around his neck, and he got it in the 15K. Finished in 3rd position behind Kruger and Colonia. Sundby finally gets his starter's orders.
Well, that's super strength there from Spitsov. Skate 2ing all the way up this climb. It'll be interesting to see if he can maintain that the 3rd time up this climb on his 3rd lap of 5.
Is that not like trying to drive a car up a hill in 4th or 5th gear?
It is. It's too much for it. The gearing is tough. Niskanen
does the same pretty much. Pretty much the double pole action with a skate. You can see how they drop the body weight down through the poles.
Well, I thought Kruger would be setting the early times at 3.3 when he got into his race, got his pacings on, but no, he's a little off the pace.
.75, got to be happy with that. Here comes number 5, which is Jules Lapierre, who set the pace early on, still has the fastest time at the very first intermediate. I can tell you that Klæbo of Norway has gone into 1st place at 2.2, so he's full of intention today. He's only got a second's advantage over Lapierre. Can he hang on? We will find out over the next 33 minutes or so. Tonseth 8.29 at 3.3. And the new leader. Dario Colonia wearing 12. Did I say wearing 12? It's Tony Livers wearing 12. Colonia wearing 39. And new Swiss colours this year.
Well, I quite like the black suit from the previous couple of seasons.
Well, it was much easier to pick out. And a broken pole for Ningit. That won't have helped. What's he got? Longer, shorter? Probably got a left-handed one.
Was that the fast left-hander? He must have fallen on the left-hander. There was a fall there earlier this morning in the Nordic combined, and a couple of injured athletes. In fact, one with 2 broken ribs. When you hit those big icy lumps on the machine-made snow at the side of the track.
Now, when you've got broken ribs, the last thing you want is a cold. Sneezing with broken ribs, not funny.
No, they're very painful things. But stand alone.
In terms of missing training, a little bit, maybe 10 days or so without too much deep breathing.
That might be what your ribs made of. I couldn't breathe much for quite a long time. Oh, I think it'll restrict for the first week. You're not able to do much, and up to 4 weeks it hurts. What have we got there? Still a problem. I want a new pole, he's saying.
Ningit trying to indicate. And he's losing time here. Surely someone is aware of what's going on. There's a couple of Norwegians in the start area. They're not going to give him a new pole. As we watch 62, familiar figure, Freddie Pellegrino on a high after his success yesterday, and a typically flamboyant autograph from him on the race clean board as we watch Musgrave again. Backshider's time of 14.46. Musgrave lying in the top 10, going through 3.3.
This is looking very good.
Eighth position after 5.
He's nice and comfortable. There's still no tension there at this part of the race. 5.8 kilometers.
Slots into 3rd. That's nice. That's nice. But a lot of the big guns starting behind. That's a messy start from Emil Iversen, not the sort of mistake you expect from him. But we did see a similar problem in the women's race. There's just a hole by the timing post, and if the basket is too close to that, it just slots in nicely, particularly with these cold conditions. Here comes Clabo, and 8:29 to beat at 3.3. Well, I don't think he's going to match it, actually, Mike. He's not.
He had the early time. Look at him reading the track. He's sticking way over to his left where the tracks are more firm, not all mushed up in the middle. He's lost some time there, 6 or 7 seconds in the last 1.3 Ks.
Well, that's not a bad tactic. Make your time up on the flat and the downhills. Conserve yourself on the big climbs until the last lap. Well, fantastic support, very much in contrast to Ruka, where we had just a few out, 5.8, and we have a new leader there as Rutte goes through. 32 is Shavotkin, just looking for Bolshanov. Bolshanov starts number 64, so he is getting ready. Alex Harvey going through. Tonseth is 9.2 inside, so the Norwegians are starting to amass at the top of the leaderboard.
Well, with Tonseth coming through at 5.8, that puts Muzzy 26.4 seconds off the pace there. Hopefully Muzzy will get that information, and you just feel that Muzzy's got reserve today.
Melnichenko of Russia dropping into the stadium just as his teammate Alexander Bolshanov and the World Cup leader prepares to start. 2 wins from 3 races so far this year. He still leads the World Cup, but really only because yesterday's win in the sprint was only worth 50 points, not 100.
Yes, and of course on Sunday, should Bolshanov be the first man across the line, he'll get an extra 200 points for the 3-day event.
Well, that would put him in a very strong position in the early stages. Niskanen at 5.8, and he's not able to match the Norwegians at the moment. Well, some of the leaders through 7.2, and Surota still the man setting the pace as Kalle Halvarsson gets underway. Big Swede, he's strong. He looked very good in Ruka. He's after a top 3 here today, but it might be a little tougher than it was in the 15K up in the north of Finland. Dario Colonia obviously coming back to some sort of form. 5.8, and he's only 12 seconds off the leaders. Musgrave now 26 behind Didrik Tonseth, who set a blistering pace on the first lap. 3 laps in all. Here comes Sundby. What's his margin going to be? That's not bad. 4.3. Looking smooth.
Looking incredibly smooth, effortless through his skis, but that hill puts a lot of effort, demands a lot of effort.
And Sindre Bjornstad scored, who's had a couple of decent races. He's more of a sprinter, really. He finished 4th yesterday. That was a great performance. Line 12th in the World Cup standings. He needs a respectable position today to pick up some points come the end of the week. Now, if you were an out-and-out sprinter, Mike, would you be doing 15 kilometres? You certainly wouldn't get Usain Bolt in his prime doing anything over 200.
You certainly wouldn't, especially over terrain like this, 620 meters climb today. The coaches do like their athletes, and I suppose it's conditioning as well and technique you're getting in there, but a 3-day event requires it. Some of them maybe don't like it.
6 Norwegians in the top 10 going through 3.3. And Didrik Tonseth fastest of all at the moment. Interesting to see how low they keep the hips now on the steeper sections, allow the legs to do the work, and then when it flattens out, the hips are high, the legs are straighter, and then the power comes from somewhere else.
Yes, the sit back, it's getting the slide up the hill, I suppose. You're locked through the core, but by doing so, you put a lot of stress through the legs. Now, Klæbo, I felt that the last couple of splits had lost his way a little in this race, setting the early times. But losing his pace, I think, a little to Tønseth.
Yeah, I would agree. I think more upper body movement than we usually see from him.
Coach telling him how far back he is from Diedrich.
Not sure he wanted
Tønseth.
Not sure he wanted to hear that. And look, he's still got another, what, 10, 11 seconds to go. He's going to be 30 seconds off the mark. So again, tactics have proved wrong. Just too quick over that first 800 metres. What about Lapierre, Mike? How's he got on? He was the man who set the pace early, but no sign of him on the leaderboard once they've actually gone past 2.2. Oh, no, he's still there at 2.2, but starting to fall down the order.
Yes, Lapierre.
10th at 5.8 at the moment.
10th position, yeah, and most likely to drop a little more. Yes, 5.8. We just saw there. We just saw Klæbo going through. He seems to have lost his momentum completely, Klæbo. Alex Harvey, on the other hand, it's an easy run up this hill. Or he looks as if he's putting little effort in.
Tønseth just sitting in behind Dario Colonia with 3 laps and 103 competitors. There is a lot of traffic out here on the track. Tønseth still looking very, very good. Harvey goes through, down in 20th place, 18.5. I dare say the after effects of yesterday starting to show.
It must be 4 times around that lap. Tønseth there just using Alex Harvey as a pacer because Alex has got the fresher legs, 1 lap less than him. Another broken pole. Sundby. So where are they breaking these poles? It is the left-hander.
Well, that's assuming that they're falling, but it's, you know, with so much traffic, as we saw yesterday with Halvorsen and Klæbo, it can happen just on the tracks with one athlete clipping the other.
Also, what I noticed on the start, or just prior to the start, a lot of the coaches were swapping the very small baskets to much wider baskets, I think. And in this, when it's machine-made snow, your baskets, your ski poles go through, and you can actually snap them within the track itself. So you press it in at one point, you travel forward, and it breaks on the forward motion. Possibly that's an issue.
Well, here's a drive by David Norris as he comes up the final climb. He's got Andrew Musgrave behind him, and Muzzy pushing quite hard, coming through towards the 10-kilometre stage. He's going to be close to the leaders. Melnichenko at 24:41. I think Musgrave might just pit this as he goes through. There are faster athletes behind him, but it's a good sign that he's competitive at this stage. Still looking really relaxed. Looks a bit bigger and stronger than last year.
He does, doesn't he? Saw some of his roller ski footage when they were down in Spain, and looking incredibly strong. And you just feel, as you say, Musgrave not overstressed with 5Ks to go, and he really does put the fight in when he wants it. Hopefully there's a lot of reserve left there in his body. .5 outside. That is very, very nice indeed. Let's hope he's got something left for the final lap. Away he goes. And Lapierre on 1:49 coming in towards the finish. She's going to be well ahead of David Norris, who started 2.5 minutes ahead of him. The margin will be close to, what, 125? Something like that, maybe even bigger than that. It's been a good run by Lapierre. We doubted his ability to keep the pace going, but he's done pretty well. Well, a 22-year-old, I think that's exceptional. He still holds the fastest time to 800 metres, unlikely to keep a hold of that time.
Sundby up towards 5.8. At 3.3, Sumbi was down in 5th, 4.3 off the leaders. And at 5.8, he's gone into 4th, 16.5. So Didrik Tonseth is the man who has absolutely blown things apart on that second loop from 5 to 10, Mike. He obviously decided that's where he's going to try and do the damage. Question is, can he hang on for the final? Here he comes through 10 kilometres. One more lap to go. He's got good company. He's got Alex Harvey with him, who's 1 lap fresher. That is brilliant news for Tonseth. Couldn't really have a better man to ski with for your final lap. Shavotkin is there as well.
Now, just looking at 10-kilometre timing, strangely, Didrik Tonseth has gone through in 2nd place behind Schurote. So I don't know what happened there between 7Ks and the 10 kilometres.
Well, that's a 15, almost 15-second swing in favour of Schurote between 7.2 and 10. That certainly sounds like a fall or a broken pole on an uphill section, one or the other.
Unless my timings are not... oh, yes, yes, the timings are correct.
Iversen, good long look at the board, trying to establish exactly where he is. Surely the Norwegians have enough team members out there to inform him exactly where he is. Into the finish now for Ningit. We thought he might be the early pace setter, but it's not turned out that way. 23.3 behind, and Lapierre stays as the race leader for now.
Ningit, we saw him lose a lot of time pleading with someone to give him a second spare pole. The first one wasn't the right size, but he certainly lost some time in that situation.
Halvarsson, the man in white and yellow and blue for Sweden, coming up to 3.3. At 2.2, he was in 2nd place, just half a second off the race leaders. Kruger. What an Olympics Kruger had. He came of age out there in South Korea, and he must be full of confidence coming into this season. 4th place at the moment, 24.3. It's pretty tight. It is pretty tight. Anyone who's saved an extra 10 seconds for that last lap has done themselves well.
And someone like Kruger, who looked composed there, looked quite easy in relation to Schurote, who looked like he was in the last, like, half a kilometre. You feel that Kruger can give something more to this final 5 kilometres and pull time back on Schurote.
Colonia tries to take advantage of the slipstream, but happy at the moment to tuck in behind number 63, which is Max Hauck of Austria. The other disadvantage the late starters have, Mike, or those at the back of the seeded group, is that they don't have a good skier, never get a good skier to ski with on the final lap. And that's when you need it most. And
the final lap, it's a lonely lap. When you've been involved in chasing someone or sticking onto the tails of their skis, it does become a lonely lap, that last lap. There'll be certainly much more spread out for the late starters.
Melnichenko still in 7th place at 5.8. And this is going to be a very, very good run. He's well up on Lapierre, but he's about 30 seconds behind the race leaders. There's absolutely no doubt we have a new leader, and he's from Russia, so good start for them. Bolshinov, we haven't heard anything of Bolshinov so far. I don't see his name on. At 5K, he was lying in 5th place, Mike. I wonder if we can try and track him at 10.
May not be through the 10.
He may not quite be through 10, yeah. He started at 64, and Alex Harvey has certainly gone through 10. Bolshinov...
he's there. He's in the pace at 5Ks, of course, that's earlier. Lop, Klebo, Lop.
Well, there are the standings at 5.8, with just about 2 full loops still to go. Tonseth, the pace setter, Rota, Colonia just behind him. Welcome back to Lillehammer. Klæbo starting 44. He's been overtaken by his teammate Finnhagen Krog. That might give him someone to give him some encouragement. Those two could ski together, so a minute's margin between those two at least. Sorry, in favour of Klæbo. He's caught a minute on Krog, which is good news. 15th place, 51.7. That's a big margin to try and make up.
Yeah, so Klæbo just not there at the moment in terms of the endurance races. We saw that last weekend in the Classic. I thought he may be better today in freestyle technique. So number 20, Backscheider set some of the top 3 early split times, and it's still a very good time. So the French team certainly look like they've come into this season. Some new athletes, a new crop of athletes, and looking very strong. Just the shift, the battle between Sjur Rote and Didrik Tunseth at 12.2. There's only 7 seconds separating them, and it's still Sjur Rote who has the advantage, 7.6 ahead. Muzzy's in 4th place. Brilliant at 12.2 kilometers. Still some big names to come through, though.
Yeah, Musgrave looks as though he's paced things pretty well. Hopefully he's got something to give on this last lap. 23 working his way up the hill is Clément Paris. Remember that Musgrave started number 30, so should be through this point in around 4 minutes' time. And that, of course, is just about all the work done, because the last 400 metres, although technical, are relatively easy here in Lillehammer. A long downhill run, and then the final left-hand turn into the finish, which shouldn't require too much skill. And then it's all about just accelerating. It doesn't look very long, Mike, but that 130, 140 metres into the finish can be brutal.
Horrible, and certainly in the Nordic Combined yesterday, it was the downfall of Frenzo. He was leading into it, but lost his way in that final 100.
2nd place at the moment for Paris, behind Melnichenko. As we go back to the race leader, Sjur Rote, number 33, and looking to take the lead ahead of Melnichenko at 13.3. He's getting closer and closer. One more climb to go after this for Rote. But that last climb, Mike, doesn't really matter, does it? Because, you know, it's, what, 120 metres long. It's, you know, it's your last effort for the day.
Yes, it certainly, and psychologically, with what he's doing in this race. And look at his composure. There's no evidence of pain, strain, effort there at all, but he's destroying the rest of the field.
He's taken another 6 seconds out of Melnichenko as we go back to Sundby coming up towards 10k. And Sundby, when we last saw him at 8.3, was in 4th place, just 3 seconds or so behind Dario Cologna of Switzerland. Cologna starting number 39. And it won't be long before Cologna comes in. He started, what, 3 minutes behind Sjur Rote.
I think Sundby will be quite surprised. He's going to be, what, 25, maybe 30 seconds off Sjur Rote's time at only 10 kilometers, maybe less. But I think he would have expected a little more. He's looking up at the timing board. And I think it'll only be disappointment. It's 21, but 5th place. Well, the positives there for Sundby. He's just got 3 seconds to move up 1 place. He's got another 3 seconds to catch up into 3rd place, so there's a lot to fight for.
Iversen has just gone through, Pukalo of Kazakhstan, and we're waiting for Sjur Rote. Well, it certainly looks as though it's going to be a Norwegian victory, Mike. They've got 3 in the top 4 at the halfway marker. And I guess it depends on what Dario Cologna does on the final loop. Last we saw of Dario Cologna, he's gone through 12.2, and he's 20 seconds off the lead of Sjur Rote. Andrew Musgrave puts in a burst. He's coming into the finish now. It's roughly 36 seconds from the top of the climb. Looks as though he could challenge Melnichenko this time. He was just behind the Russian going through 10K, but I think Musgraves picked it up in the closing stages. Great opening distance race for him. Didn't take part in Ruka, so just a little bit race rusty, but showing good form. I've been really impressed with his composure throughout. So often in the past, he went off hard, he led the way over the first 5K and then just faded. It's been a very different story today.
He's looked great. He's absolutely looked fantastic. It may not remain. He'll finish across the line, what, in second place, probably?
Yeah, I think he's just going to miss this by a fraction. Great effort, though. Couple of seconds in it. Musgrave is going into second place, and he has to be happy with that. 37.18, 37.19. We'll wait for confirmation of his time, but in the meantime, we'll switch back to Surota, who's now coming into the finish, and he's in a fabulous position. This is going to be a lead of at least 20 seconds, probably more, closer to 30.
Well, he just, and Surota looks, it's still at this stage in the race so composed, setting the track alight out there, and this will be about 40 seconds, I think, faster than Muzzy. But this is a great day for Surota, not a prolific winner in his past, but always there or thereabouts. What a performance.
Fabulous finish. Kept it strong all the way through. Ruta had the fastest time, or has the fastest time at 10K. Can't see anyone who's going to touch that now. Tonseth, 18 seconds to get in. It's going to be close, but he's not quite going to make it. He was 9 seconds down when we last saw him through a time split, and that margin's going to stay roughly the same. Second place is waiting for Didrik Tonseth, 27-year-old, comes from Trondheim. He was, 16th in the World Cup standings last year. Had 2 wins back in 2015. He's just missed out this time. 6 seconds, good finish. Very good finish.
Well, they are two athletes in exceptional form. Didn't even appear out of breath. Yes, the last part of this course is easy. This final 30 seconds is the easiest part on the track.
Spitsov is going to be 30 seconds or so off the leaders. So 36.34, the leading time at the moment. 36.40 is second place. Melnichenko on 37.14, and we may well see Spitsov get in ahead of his teammate. He will do, and he'll have a margin of 10 seconds or so. So a good finish from Spitsov. Olympic bronze medalist, goes third for now, but he's not going to stay there. There are quicker athletes out on the track. Emil Iversen was 60. This is Kruger.
Well, Kruger's lost a lot of pace out there, still to cut it to reach the top of this climb and then the descent into the stadium.
Yeah, he's going to be a minute or so behind, but still could take a top 10 position. Clement Paris currently lying in 6th, a minute and 2 off the pace of Surota. So the gaps are enormous. Good news for Great Britain. Andrew Musgrave still lying in 5th position, but 45 seconds. That's quite a sizable margin. Musgrave in 6th position at 13.3 with Dario Colonia through. What about Martin Jonsrud Sundby? He has yet to go through 12.2, but it shouldn't be long before he reaches that point. Sundby was in 5th at 10 kilometres.
And Sundby was only, I mentioned, 3 seconds off Spitsov at 10 kilometres. He'll be getting all the timings. We'd expect him to move forward.
So Kruger, the Olympic skiathlon champion, misses out on Andrew Musgrave's time. That shows you just how good Andy Musgrave is. Great to see him in this sort of form early season. I know he was happy with the way training had gone. They had a nice, warm weather training camp. I think it was in Mallorca. That won't do them any harm at all.
You need that, I think, on endless hard training throughout the summer. Weather affects the mood, and which affects performance. You need some good warm weather training.
Holland is going to miss out on Musgrave's time as well. And that's another good win.
His 7th position, Holland. 48 seconds behind.
Here comes the Olympic 15-kilometre champion. One Dario Cologna, and he is going to change the top four. He goes 4th position. Melnichenko goes down to 5. Musgrave goes down to 6. And with Sundby still out on the track, Sundby is certainly in a position to challenge for a top 5. So Cologna is not safe in 4th. Melnichenko is not safe in 5. No one, Mike, is going to match Sirota, who's finished with a time of 24:14.
No, definitely not. Bolshinov is losing his way on the track, so...
Sorry, 36:34. I was looking at his 10-kilometre time. 36:34. I thought that was a bit quick for 10K. As you see it there, 36:34. 6 seconds back to Tunseth. Spitsoff on 28.6. So no change with the top 3 positions as we watch Kalle Halvorsen go through. I'm not sure a late start of number 68 suited the big man, Mike. He's way slower than we would have expected. Here comes Sundby, who's coming up to 13.3, already 26, 27 behind. He might have trouble matching Andy Musgrave today. That would be an interesting one, and it means that Sundby has faded badly on this last loop. But the conditions are now considerably worse than they were half an hour ago. They're much worse than they were for the early starters when this race got underway at an hour ago.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, but Iversen, Bib 60, he's the only one of the big names back there who's managing to stay with a sharp pace at the front.
4 down and still no victory for Johannes Husflot. Klæbo, the champion from last year. He goes into 15th. He'll pick up a few points, but he's left himself far too much to do to have any chance of retaining the title here in this mini tour. That will not happen. Ferger in 12 for Switzerland. The Swiss still delighted with Dario Cologna's 3rd place. It's Norway 1 and 2 at the moment. Rota leads over Tunseth. Cologna 3. In fact, Spitsoff has gone into 3rd. Cologna now 4. Melchenko 5. Musgrave 6. Kruger 7. Holland in 8. Well, Spitsoff's had a great run, Mike. Slightly surprised by that. The margin between himself and Cologna is 10 seconds, and he's only 28 off the leader.
Well, Finn Hagen Kroh, he started okay, he started well, but he's completely run out of gas here. He had some chest problems last season, and well, I hope it's still not a sort of a belated or recurring again this season for him, but it's certainly not in the races today. And Bolshinov, certainly a 10-kilometre, a lot of work to do. 17th position, 44.6 behind.
Well, that yellow bib could well be disappearing today as we watch Finn Hagen Krogh just across the line. Bolshinov's lead at the start of today was 34 points over Emil Iversen. Klæbo was a little further down, only 50 points for the win. So actually, Bolshinov, despite the fact that he's outside the top 15, may still hang on to the yellow bib, but the margins will close and the bib will change at the end of tomorrow when the 200 points are awarded to the tour leader.
Well, as this race unfolds, it's becoming a stronger and stronger performance for Muzzy. I thought maybe it was going to be top 10, but now it's 6th and likely to stay 6th or 7th.
Yeah, Sundby could challenge him. Where's Sundby yet to go? He's gone through 13.3.
No, Sundby's behind.
Yeah, Sundby has dropped down. He's only 3 seconds off Musgrave's time, so that will be a battle. Those two very good friends indeed, and Musgrave will enjoy getting one over on Martin Jonsrud Sundby. Doesn't happen so often, but it's a really good mark of how well he's going, what sort of form he's in. Sirota is not only in the leader's enclosure, he's going to take this one. No one's going to touch his time, and 36.34, very impressive. Not particularly quick for a 15k, but that's all to do with the conditions. Here comes Sundby. He's got another 170 meters to go. Round the last corner now. He can see the finish, and Cologna's time of just outside the top 3 is not going to be matched. Cologna 37.12. Musgrave on 45 is safe, and Kruger on 47 is safe. Holland is safe. Oh my goodness, just a couple of seconds costing Sumbi 3 or 4 places. That's what the coaches say. Every second counts, and we didn't really see a big sprint coming in from Sumbi.
No, and Iversen with his performances yesterday, 4 times around the sprint course yesterday. He went to the final, and I think we can say suffering now for that effort yesterday. He started this at 10 kilometers. He was still in 6th position here. He's dropping down a little now.
Second in the World Cup standings, Iversen. He's had 2 silver medal positions and a 4th. Certainly in terms of positions, Iversen's performance is better than anyone else. A 4th, a 2nd, a 2nd. Compare that to Bolshinov, 2 wins and a 21st. So Iversen has been the consistent one, but when you're on very good form for the first week, you expect to be suffering by the end of the second week.
Victor Thorn putting in a strong performance, coming in towards his finish.
Yeah, I suspect he's been told that a couple of seconds is worth 5, 6 places. It is very, very tight once we get outside of the top 5. 40 seconds separating the top 5, and then 4 seconds separating the next 5. I think Thorn would be happy with a top 15 today. Might just make that. Larkov on 106 is bettered, and all that effort well worthwhile for Victor Thorn. That is the smile of someone who knows he's won himself 50 World Cup points. A decent check. 5,000 Swiss francs for the win, and then the bonus points given for the winner of the Tour. I guess he's in a good position to win the Tour overall.
Fabulous. I think it's great because he's been such a good servant to the Norwegian team for, the last 9 years. Only 1 World Cup victory. Today's his 2nd, and that's got to be good news for Schuh-Rothe.
Yeah, and that win came back in 2015, so it's been a while. There you see the standings at the finish. Rothe and Tonsev make it Norway 1 and 2. Spitsov get Russia back on the podium again. They've had a fabulous start to the season, and the Olympic champion pushed just out of the top 3. Dario Colonia in 4th position, ahead of Andrei Melnichenko, who started early, took full advantage of the better conditions. They weren't good, but they were better. And then Andy Musgrave of Great Britain lying in 6th, 37.19 his time. He had to get to get on the podium?
17 seconds.
Yeah, that's a fairly big margin, to be honest, but still, it was an impressive performance. Alex Harvey, he's going to be over 1:20 behind. Emil Iversen, 2nd in the World Cup standings. He's going to be 45 at least. Now, Iversen might do something, Mike. What, at the last split, did he feature in the top 10? I don't think so.
Iversen, just 10th position, 49 behind.
49.2. So, if he can gain 5, he will go into the top 6 and push Musgrave down. So, Muzzy can't celebrate a top 6 quite yet. Harvey is across the line, faded a little Harvey. Here comes Iversen. He's a very good sprinter, so don't rule him out going up the positions in the closing kilometre. 38. He's still got 5 seconds or so to get ahead of Musgrave, who's on 45.1. No. It's going to be close. Oh, he just misses it. Musgrave stays 6, Iversen goes 7, and Kruger down in 8th. Good effort, just shows what it's worth if you can kill yourself over the last kilometre, as he's just done.
What's going to be left for him tomorrow? 2 days, huge effort.
Yeah, 10th to 7th in the last K.
It's impressive. He was given all the times, as all the athletes really are, but he can dig especially deep, Iversen, when he wants to.
And Bolshinov, have we got a...
Well, Bolshinov, 20th position at last check. He's coming in soon, 1:26 behind. Not a great news day for Bolshinov. And I think he'll drop a little more, likely to drop a little further below 20th position.
Yeah, so he should pick up 10 points or so. Everson getting, what, 7th position is going to get 32. So the gap at the top of the table will change by some 22 points. But that is not enough to put Everson ahead of Bolshinov. So the yellow bib stays on Russian shoulders for another day. But I suspect it will all change come tomorrow night. So, who's your money on for the overall? It's a little difficult because we've got to work out the timings from the sprint. It's going to take a while. I suspect we won't have the answers before we go off air today, but we'll certainly have a rundown on the situation before the race starts tomorrow.
Yes, because sure, Rota, Tunsev didn't even make the top 30 yesterday in the sprints. Melnichenko the same. So a lot of these top athletes today, Muzzy was, what, 47th in the sprint qualifying, didn't make it through to the finals yesterday. Likewise with Kruger, who's in 8th position at the finish. Bolshinov just behind Hauk here, getting a lot of encouragement over the top of the final climbs. He'll be coming down into the stadium now.
Here comes Bolshinov. Can he get himself back up into the top 20? He's got to be sharp because they're very tightly packed between 15 and 20. 130 from Hauk. Should just about manage that. So 18th, 19th place for Bolshinov. And he'll pick up, what, 23 points. So a change of some 20 points at the top of the table, but not enough to depose the young Russian from top spot in the World Cup table. He keeps the yellow bib and he gets, what, an extra 5,000 Swiss francs for wearing it? Something like that each time you go out?
He does indeed.
Or is it 500? Might have been a little bit generous.
5,000 for the win, Swiss francs. But a shake of the head there from Bolshinov, just exactly saying how he felt out there today. Pellegrino, look at the sprint to the finish, like yesterday.
That's not a bad effort at the end of 15K, but he'll be feeling it. He'll be feeling it. Are we going to see that sort of performance from him tomorrow? 3:13, it's a big, big margin, but he got what he wanted. He extended his record as the most successful sprint, freestyle sprinter of all time, Pellegrino, with his win yesterday. And there was a big smile and a great interview with him after the race. And interesting, Mike, you know, they had a big mix-up, switch-up in the Italian team post-Olympics. It's seldom that it works straight away.
And he was so happy with his team, his new team. Didn't know how it was going to work out, but another victory for him. 11 victories now in sprint racing. Great credentials.
56th position, well outside the World Cup points.
Of course, Halvarsson, the giantess, the second last of the seeded racers, Score the last of the seeded elite group. So Muzzy absolutely safely guaranteed in 6th position. What a start to a season at a World Cup 15-kilometre.
Well, I don't think I've seen Halvarsson with his hat off so far this season. He's got a new look hairstyle. I had to double check. 129, 130. So the top 10 only separated by 48 seconds. So Halvarsson, one of the favourites for today, way off the pace. Was it a late start number? Quite possibly costing him. Certainly looked as though it cost Bolshinov as well. If we look at the numbers of those leading, we've got 33, 34, 35, 39, and they were pretty much the early starters in the seeded group. What does that tell you? 15, 30 are there as well. Everson is the man who's done exceptionally well. Started 60, he's got himself into 7th. So, day 2 of Lillehammer complete. One race day remaining, and it will be pursuits for men and women tomorrow. In the women's, Therese Johaug is now hot favourite, but she's got one young Ebba Andersson of Sweden on her tail, and Charlotte Kaller is always dangerous when she's close to the lead. In the men's, Mike, it's going to be interesting. I think the margin that Rota and Tonseth have won by today puts them in a very, very strong position for the overall. And what about young Denis Spitsov there from Russia?
Yeah, that was, again, he showed his credentials at the Olympics. He showed what he can do. I was surprised last weekend he was off form, but he's incredible. He started so easy today and then put in a very fast second half to this race.
Pacing again was fairly key. Tonseth only his second ever World Cup win, so we saw a new World Cup winner with Sundling yesterday. We saw the most successful sprinter of all time get a win, Pellegrino, so a mixed bag there. In the women's race this morning, well, it was, you know, an interesting one, but Johaug is something else, isn't she?
She's come into the season with no real expectations, but going so well.
So Russians are going to have a strong relay team, no doubt about that, with Spitsov and Bolshinov both going well. Didrik Tonseth for Norway, 27 years old. He was, what, 16th in the World Cup last year, 2 wins back in 2015, wasn't far off one today. This man denied him. Surota, perfect pacing. Perfect poise as well. Beautiful, beautiful balance on the skis.
Well, for many years he has been viewed as technically one of the best, if not the best.
And yeah, he looked very relaxed.
You need that efficiency over this distance.
You have claimed your second World Cup win. How does it feel?
It feels amazing. I'm really satisfied, and with today's race it was really tough, but I was yeah, it was good.
It was very close. So how did you notice that along the track?
Yeah, actually, I didn't know I was fighting for the victory. I just heard that I was fighting with Didrik, and I didn't know it was for the victory until yeah, last 5K. So, but it was. I did everything I could and kept high speed all the way. So it was. I'm really satisfied.
Back on the podium. Congratulations. Very well done.
Thank you.
Well, we didn't learn too much from that, although I have to say I'm surprised that he didn't know where he was standing, didn't know that he was in contention. Maybe that was intentional, and then just give them the information before the last lap. But that's unusual.
It's unusual. I suppose early on in the race he was an earlier start number to give, and I suppose the Norwegians know that Tonseth has been on very good form at the Cup races. Norwegian Cup race.
The dilemma is, or was, that so many of the big names started after him.
Far behind.
You know, you can't give him too much. Bolshinov stays top, as you can see, but the gap cut dramatically. And now we just have some 14 points in it, with Iversen in second. Klæbo still hanging on to third, but yet to get his first win of the season. By this time last year, he had 4 victories under his belt. Quite astonishing, the change. Norway absolutely dominant at the top of the men's. It's not the same in the women's because the Swedes are the stronger nation. Bolshinov stays in yellow, but he must be a bit concerned, Mike. He's looked tired this week.
So different to last week. In Finland last week, 2 races, 2 victories. Struggling this weekend.
So the women racing over 10, the men over 15 tomorrow. Pursuit format. It should be a good one. Join us then if you can.